Ear candy. No, it's not a sweet treat for you to shove in the side of your head, nor is it a candy in the shape of your ears. Ear candy refers to the memorable musical moments in a song that catch the listener's ear, and it's everywhere in music.
No, I can't refuse it. Picture perfect.
It can transform a boring production into something that bleeds professionalism. And if you've ever wanted to learn how to make it, you've come to the right video. In this video, I'll break down the system I've created after a decade of experimentation to craft incredible ear candy quickly and easily every time. Let's hop in. Now, why should a producer even care about learning how to make ear candy in the first place? Well, let me give you 4 quick reasons why you should include it in your track. First off, attention spans. You've got about 3 seconds to grab someone's attention before they swipe to the next song, and ear candy can keep those listeners hooked like a sea bass. Second off, dopamine. Ear candy is the bagged Doritos of the audio world. They're addictive, they make you feel good, and they keep you coming back for more. Thirdly, sonic signature. Ear candy helps build your unique musical fingerprint and can help set you apart in a sea of sameness. People recognize ear candy from a mile away. Lastly, depth. If your track tells a story or paints a picture, ear candy supports and adds to every detail. But now let's actually discover the system I've developed over a decade of experience to give those ears some sweet treats. Here's an overview of my system that I've broken down into the following 5 steps. Feel free to skip to any of them using the chapter markers below. Now let's learn a little bit more about each one. Before you start throwing in every splice loop you can find that sounds cool, let's come up with a game plan. Step 1 of my system is plan it out. Just because you can put ear candy anywhere you want to in a song doesn't mean you should. There are a few key places that you can place it that will have the biggest impact on your song. I recommend that you think of your ear candy as an extension of your main melody. Most of the time, that means your vocals. Take a listen to your song and hear where your vocals or your melody has some space. That space is the best place for you to shine the spotlight on some cool sounding audio effects. Check out what I mean.
Never give, I'll never give, I'll never give up. I'll never give, I'll never give, I'll never give up. I'll never give, I'll never give, I'll never give up. I'll never give.
Think of this interplay between your ear candy and melody like passing off a baton. It's okay if there's some overlap, but too much can create a sense of confusion for the listener. Focus their attention from one audio idea into another. And once you know where you can plan on putting your ear candy, you can begin experimenting with different sound ideas. That leads me into my second step for crafting incredible ear candy: make it relevant. Once you have the space where you want to put your sweet audio idea, make sure it fits with the track. Throwing in a random trumpet sound in a country song might work, but a slide guitar lick would probably be a better choice. Match the genre that you're working with to the sound you choose for your ear candy. Sometimes you can break this rule and get some cool results, but you don't want to distract the listener from the overall message of your song or the sound experience. You want to add to it. Making it relevant is about matching the genre and matching the instrumentation of a song, but it can also mean using the song lyrics to create interesting sounds. For example, in this song, I say we can kick it like karate, and then I throw in a cheesy karate kick sound. Check it out.
Dabby, dabby, where we can kick it like karate, yaddy, yaddy. When it's you and me, we don't need anybody.
Are karate kick sounds a part of a normal pop song? No. But does it make sense with the lyrics and exemplify my vocals? Oh yeah. Be subtle with this technique, as too many sound effects that emphasize the lyrics are bound to sound corny. But there are also a myriad of other sound choices you can make to expand your ear candy canvas, which leads us into step number 3 of my system: choose the right sound. This is the most important part of my system. You can follow all the other steps perfectly, choose a bad sound, and still get a bad result. You really have to keep this in mind as you're working with ear candy. To help you keep things straight, I'm going to give the 4 most popular types of audio sounds I use for ear candy in my productions and explain how to incorporate each one. First up, vocal chops. Now, I'm a singer and I'm lazy, so I like recording the sound ideas I have in my head for my ear candy directly into the DAW. For the majority of songs, whenever I have ear candy, I'll sing another part to fill in the empty space. Yeah! This could be a repetition of the last vocal line I said, or it could introduce a slightly new melody. You can either use a new vocal recording, or you can take an existing word or phrase from the vocals you already have. What's important is that you're passing that baton and keeping things fresh and new. Speaking of fresh and new, if you're fresh and new to this channel, we make videos like this every week. Subscribe so you don't miss a beat. Next up, sound effects with the vocal. Just like before, I'll sing the idea I have in my head into the DAW, no matter how far it is off from my mind's ear. I'll record sub drops, vocal rises, whistles, blips, you name it. I'll use these recorded vocals occasionally, but other times they'll just serve as a placeholder for the idea I had in my head. I can always spend the time later to find a better sound, but as I'm working through my creative flow, I don't want to stop any ideas by spending an hour looking for a good siren sound when I can approximate one with my voice. Take a look at this reverse swell I made during the chorus with my voice. Right before that snare hits, just adding a little bit more atmosphere. The third on the list is reverse sounds. Reverse sounds sound fucking cool, and it's super easy to use instruments you already have and just reverse them and fill in the space. This automatically fulfills step 2 because it's going to match everything, and it usually sounds pretty cool. I'll reverse kicks, synths, pianos, hi-hats, vocals, you name it. All of them are fair play. And last up on the list is kind of a catch-all for all the other sounds I'll use. I'm eloquently naming these sounds Foley / unusual / cool / weird sounds. This is probably my least often used type of ear candy, but it's also the one that sounds the coolest and is the most memorable. If you don't know, Foley sounds are the special sound effects that people add to movies to make them feel more real. Imagine someone pretending to walk by pretending to tapping shoes on a floor, or making a crunching sound with paper to sound like fire. Foley can be a great way to get some unusual sounds, just like in that karate example. Feel free to get creative here. Any sound could potentially work in your song, you just have to make sure it sounds good. Anytime you're using a weird sound effect of Foley or whatever, if it has a pitch or tone that goes along with it, then make sure it's in the same key of your song. For example, if you flicked a glass cup, it probably has a pitch to it, and you have to make sure it matches with the rest of your song. You can do that in Logic really easily by dragging that sample that you recorded of whatever into the sample bank right here, going into Quick Sampler Optimize, and seeing what the note comes up as. In this case, the root key is C, which tells me we're in the key of C. What's also cool about this Quick Sampler is that I can move it and adjust it around as need be, and now I can just play it on my MIDI as an actual instrument. So you can just use MIDI like normal, make sure it's in your scale, and you're good to go. And those are the main types of sounds I actually use, but now it's time to move on to the next step of my system. That's a lot of ways to go about making ear candy, but all of those ways won't matter at all if you don't process them properly. That leads me to step 4 of my system: process your ear candy correctly. Ear candy is taking the spotlight for a short period of time, but it should never overpower the rest of the track. For that reason, I like to drown my ear candy in EQ, delays, and reverbs. Most of the time I'm processing my ear candy, I'll bandpass it heavily so that the extreme highs and lows are at the gas station with your dad getting cigarettes. Nowhere to be found. Then I love to slap a reverb on there and crank it up to have a long tail. In this case, 4 seconds. If I want more space, I'll put a delay on there as well and put it before the reverb. If I ever have an overlapping ear candy and main vocal part, my main vocals will be much farther forward and present in the mix because of the now processed ear candy, taking away those high and low frequencies, and I'm pushing it back with all this reverb and delay. This is my normal way of processing ear candy, but just like adult diapers, it depends. And that brings us to the last step of my system: repeat, but don't overuse. Once you've gone through the song, picked out a spot, experimented with a bunch of different sounds like a scientist, processed your vocal, and finally have a cool sounding piece of audio goodness, it's time to reuse it. Yes, reuse it. All that work that you put in can be reused in the song. Listeners will begin to recognize that sweet ass synth line you threw in, or that awesome vocal chop you recorded. If you added a piece of ear candy after the second line in the first verse, then throwing in the same audio in the second verse can work really well. This is called a motif in music, and people love motifs, I'm telling you. But don't overdo this. If you put your ear candy all over the track you made, your audience won't appreciate it as much. It's like eating too much candy. 2 Reese's Cups are tasty. 30 Reese's Cups make you want to barf. Use your ear candy sparingly and you'll be way better off. And that's my system for crafting incredible ear candy. To recap, here are the 5 steps we went over. But as with everything in music, my system works for me. You've got to go and find out what the hell works for you. Experiment. Go and try out some weird sounds. Throw your tracks on the wall and see what sticks. If you got anything from this video, hit the like button below and show me that ear candy is tight.